Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Soul Potential CEO podcast. And I am so excited to talk to our guest today. We have Jewel Veitch, heart led leadership coach, founder of the Inner Somatic brand and the heart language healing modality. And I just want to extend a big welcome to you and thank you for being here. We are looking forward to chatting with you today about everything magic in your world. So, welcome, Jewel.
Thank you. I'm so looking forward to this conversation.
All right. So, I want to start off with asking you, what does heart led leadership mean to you? Because I think that a lot of people in the industry might have an assumption about what that means, but I'd love to hear it from you and where you see that distinction between what you see as the alternative to that.
Yeah, I see and I feel heart-led leadership as all-encompassing where we lead from heart. And these words sound so simple, but they're actually really some of the most powerful words. Coming back to heart in every step, coming back to heart with every decision and choice and act of service and way that we create and way that we bring our magic into the world from the heart. And to me, what that means is that it's coming from this place of authentic, pure, pristine, clean leadership. And I think that in opposition to that, sometimes we see leadership that isn't moving from that heart-led place. And I also believe that heart-led place requires that you take responsibility to come back to heart rather than being led by by logic, by perceived notions about how things should be. It really comes from this place of intuition and this place of accessing our capacity to tune in to the heartbeat of truth, of what's here now and what is of greatest service for the highest good.
In a leadership role, I know that you work with people who are at executive levels in companies, or maybe they're leading large projects or leading in certain industries. In that role, how would you articulate where people find themselves out of that experience and what they're looking for when they would choose to pay attention to something like being heart led? Like, how do they know? How do they know that they're not? And how do they know when it's time to shift their approach?
There's this misalignment that happens to them and they experience it in their bodies. And the incongruence between what's happening in industry or within a project or in communication with colleagues or whatever the case may be, if they are wired and designed to come from heart and have this deep desire to do so, and the leadership that they're engaging with isn't coming from that place, is coming from a place of false power, for instance, of the bottom line, the money, the profit, which is all part of business, of course, but they're doing it in a way that there's a willingness to compromise integrity and compromise heart. When they experience that, when they're in connection with that and involved in that kind of scenario, it shows up in their body. It shows up in their inability to sleep properly and restfully. It shows up in their bloating. It shows up in their stress level. It shows up in their nervous system that becomes out of control and they find themselves on overdrive. It shows up in so many ways that they witness and see in their lives, and they're straddling between two worlds. And in the straddling, they find themselves deeply desiring something different and, of course, lacking fulfillment, and the kind of soul level fulfillment that they're looking for exists in the heart. I know this on some level, but they don't know what to do about it, where to go, how to change it, how to make things different, how to step forward and set things in motion in a way that is really in alignment with what their heart knows.
So
Mm.
they might be experiencing anxiety or maybe even be
Mhm.
at the point where they feel like what they're doing is not for them. So I'm imagining that maybe they're like, I can't
Totally.
do this job anymore. Something has to change.
Mhm.
Maybe the infrastructure of the company doesn't support the way that I feel things need to be done because there's all of these markers and data points and project
Yeah.
milestones and all the things that need to get taken care of. And so, on a personal level, really feeling like there's a shift, but they don't know where to go. I'm assuming that the experience is quite frustrating and disorienting. How do they know that being in a heart led space is going to be the solution to that?
It does feel really disorienting, and it does feel really discombobulating for them. Oftentimes, when people are ready to arrive into my world, they have tried all kinds of other things. They
Mm,
have tried mindset work, which handles their mindset, but it doesn't incorporate the other dimensions. It doesn't incorporate the heart, and it doesn't incorporate the body wisdoms that they don't yet have access to. They usually know because their body is knocking on the door really hard, or there's so much chaos in their life that they come to an impasse and they just throw their hands up and say, okay, what do I do? Where do I go? And I think that there's an inherent knowing in human beings that coming back to fart is the essential nature of really coming home, but they don't know it on a conscious level. They just know how much it hurts when the chaos becomes so great and when the physical ailments or physical symptoms become so great that it's like that push over the edge that they've got to do something. So I don't know that it's a conscious awareness that, "Oh, I need to lead from the heart." But that's what they very quickly discover when they come into my world. I believe that the heart pulls us toward what it is that we need and want. So it's an intuitive knowing that pulls them forward.
I like what you said about how you believe that there is a deep body knowing on some level of us that we need to come back to heart, even though we might not cognitively, or maybe that's not in our language. That's not really how we understand things. What would you say the first step to actually doing this in your life, or the first step is to realizing that's going to make a big change for you or a big shift for you?
So for them to understand and experience that this is a path that could really help them navigate through the change they may not feel safe to make at the moment is that they start having glimpses of what it is that they actually want and to start giving themselves permission to want what they want.
Mm,
So often people don't give themselves permission to want what they want for various reasons. This first spark of invitation within them where they recognize that there is something more. So they're asking like there's got to be more. What's missing? What isn't? I can't quite grasp it. And oftentimes people will receive a spark whether it's in a dream, whether it's in some kind of observation of something that they see or they experience, or maybe it's a connection with Mother Nature where they
mm.
have this pure connection point with something that is bigger than they are. That's the nudge. That's the pull forward. That's the intuitive wisdom that is the soul wisdom you talk about all the time, the soul wisdom that is calling them.
I'm assuming that's what you're calling heart legacy, because I know that you talk about what legacy means and how fulfillment doesn't actually come from a linear to-do list or maybe even career accolades or successes. And oftentimes people find themselves at some point in their lives down the road where they've achieved all of their goals. And it doesn't actually feel like they thought it would, or maybe they have the money that they imagined or dreamed
Mhm.
of, and that doesn't feel like they thought it would either. And so in this moment, the legacy that you leave behind, I'm assuming, is coming from learning how to lead from this place. What would you have to say about what you've seen transform in people who choose to step onto this alternative path and change
Mhm.
their leadership style in order to support expressing and living from the heart?
That's such a great question. What I've seen so often is how someone begins to understand legacy differently and begins to see legacy not as something that they leave behind, money or an estate or a business or something like that, which also happens, but it's deeper than that. It goes deeper into the realm of how you live your legacy now.
Mm,
A lived legacy right now. And what I've seen so often actually in every scenario is the way in which people transform their way of being in relationship,
yeah.
in their greatest relationships, the way in which they communicate from heart through the heart, the way in which they open up conversations that become so rich and expansive versus the relationship dynamic that used to exist in their lives. They witness and they experience relationship dynamics that become so broad that now they're in community and now they're in this living legacy experience where they're talking and walking and creating from the heart. I believe that the heart of the universe, the universal heartbeat, it beats as one. Now they become connected and start to communicate with the universal heartbeat and therefore the heartbeat of others in their lives that they're in relationship with. And there's this beautiful harmony that happens in these evolving relationships. And so much can be created from that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because I have mused on this myself often. I was thinking about money and career. I've considered this quite a bit and how when I really deeply tap into what I would want to leave behind, especially for my children or the people that I have had the honor and joy of connecting to, it doesn't ever really end with money. It doesn't feel like that is enough for me, even though the idea of setting my family up for generations to come might be nice. It almost feels like, well, that would be great, but that's not really what I'm here for. And so there's something else, there's something deeper than that actually props up, like you said, all the other pieces that come in line
Mhm.
once you hit that deeper point. I totally resonate with that. I'd love
Mhm.
to hear you explain or give listeners an idea of what an embodied state of heart leadership looks like.
And feels like. I'm going to start with the feeling because I am led by this living feeling wisdom that I carry and that I believe most people carry, whether they know it or not. It's a felt experience of inner freedom, inner wealth, inner congruence, inner equanimity, and a sense of waking up in the morning and feeling excited and inspired and free to create and free to be who we are,
Mm.
completely 1000% who we are. And that's a feeling that then translates into creating from heart and creating movements and creating projects and initiating innovations and moving the needle forward in things that are going to be good for the world.
Yeah. What you're sharing here is that really getting into the felt states first is the doorway, which I assume has to do with your work inside of Inner Somatic. So, do you want to talk a little bit about why that is so important for people and why a practice around inner cultivation actually changes the game, no matter what industry you're in or whatever your level of success is?
Yeah, the origin of this felt sensation is because sensation guides us and because felt wisdom is what guides us. And just To roll the camera back about an inch is that how we talk to ourselves, how we speak to ourselves literally dictates the quality of our lives. And reason for that is that these words of power, these words of the heart that we speak either silently or outwardly hold a resonance and hold a vibration that it's either dense or light or anything in between. The frequency within which your inner world is operating within the dialogue creates sensation. It creates an instant response from the body. The body instantly responds and creates this felt sensation. And so that's why the conscious heart communication as part of the heart language healing is so paramount. And to answer your question, it's so important because the quality of our lives are literally dictated by the way that we feel. It's like me showing up here today on this podcast with you, feeling uplifted, feeling inspired, feeling connected with you, feeling passionate about this work, feeling really clear about the impact of this work is going to be very different and hold a very different frequency than me showing up here feeling afraid, having all these mental things going on in my head about things that I'm worried about or things that I have self-doubt about or questioning about. The way that I feel comes from the way that I speak to myself and that I develop a heart language around. That to me is how it is so important because I don't know if you've ever read about, for instance, Viktor Frankl, who was in a concentration camp and found this space within himself of inner freedom, even though he was in prison,
Right.
found this space of inner freedom because he commanded himself to feel a certain way by the way that he perceived and spoke to himself about his situation. And that's
Right.
a really radical example, but we all have the capacity and the privilege of actually curating the way that we feel
Mm.
and the way that we choose to perceive and the way that we choose to communicate within ourselves through the heart.
Yep. Beautiful. I love that awareness. And I actually personally found this years ago when I was really unhappy in life. I thought to myself, I can create better emotions. So I'm going to start with that first. Because I think sometimes the task of changing everything else feels too step by step. It's too unknown. It's too maybe out of our control. But we absolutely can cultivate beautiful internal emotional landscapes. And through gratitude, and I know the way that we enjoy nature is a big part of the joy that you have to share with people inside of your world and the way that you experience it as well. There's so much abundance for us to connect to. So that's beautiful.
So much.
Yeah, so much. So tell us where people can find you, follow you, connect with you, and experience your work.
Sure. I am on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on LinkedIn and under Jewel Veitch on my name. And my people can find me on my website, jewelveitch.com. And people can experience my work through coming into my community, which is home for all of the beautiful rituals and practices and tools and activations that I've created over decades. It's so close to my heart because there is a home where all of these things can be housed and people can experience a range of tools within my world that are going to help them to move forward in realizing their unrealized potential and living into their legacy and their heart's desire. Aligned Impact Academy is the name of my community.
Amazing. You'll find all the links to what Jewel just shared inside of the show notes in this podcast. And I want to thank you so much for being here and sharing your beautiful work with the world and your perspective on how each and every one of us, no matter what it is that we do, can step into more heart led leadership and self leadership to experience the truth of our potential to create here. Thank you so much, Jewel.
Thanks for having me, Tia.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye bye.